Good evening, folks. Wow, that's really loud. But if I'm too loud, please forgive me, I'll back off. I think it's 6:59, but in the interest of respecting your time, I figure we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bart Warner. I'm the town manager. On behalf of the town council, I wanted to thank you folks for coming out tonight and to welcome you. The purpose of this meeting, as you're probably well aware, is to talk about the Phase 2 boundary adjustment process. To provide you some background as to why it's happening, the nature of it, what it means. Also to provide some information about the town itself and the town's taxes and what our customers can reasonably expect for that. So we've developed a presentation that we think will answer several questions. However, I'll get through that expeditiously out of respect for your time because you really don't want to sit here and hear me drone. But once we're done with that, we will have time for you to ask any questions, share any comments. Again, I'll stay here as late as you want me to make sure you have the information you have, but we do want to move forward expeditiously. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and begin with the presentation. So a lot of you are familiar with the fact that about 10 years ago, the city of Bedford became the town of Bedford. And there's a lot of details associated with that, and there was an agreement between the city and the county that dealt with a number of things. A couple of factors are annexation and the impact on the county. There is a moratorium on annexation for independent cities, and that makes a lot of sense because, of course, when cities do claim land, they're basically taking it from counties, and that certainly affects counties. That does not apply to towns. And that was a key issue back in 2013. The county asked up front, was the city planning to annex territory? Well, that was a discussion that was had between the elected leadership of both groups, and basically there was kind of a negotiated settlement. Although the town had the right to annex as any town would, basically the town entered into an agreement whereby for 15 years, starting in 2013, the town would waive its rights except for 3 specifically defined areas. And basically, for lack of any more creative term, those are identified as Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. While I'm talking about that reversion agreement, though, there were several other things attached to that. One of which was the city had its own school district on the books and got funding from the state for that and agreed, with the help of Lacey Butling, to allow the county to use the city's funding formula for that. And the result is that the county, since 2013, currently, and through 2028, is receiving an additional payment of $6 million a year from the state. So that was one of the benefits from the county. Not really hand for hand or an exact match, but the town's right to annex was kind of based on providing that benefit for the county. The county also is paying the town $750,000 a year from 2013 to 2028, which is kind of in exchange for the town giving up Bedford Elementary School, the Welcome Center, and the library, which were all properties that were formerly owned by the city. So again, with reversion, there are a whole lot of elements that are intertwined. And when I say they're intertwined, they're all kind of balanced against each other. Ultimately, all of this was vetted at the state level. The city, the county, and the Commission on Local Government got together, a three-judge panel issued a ruling, and we're now executing the provisions of that. And for tonight's purposes, we're talking about the annexation of Phase 2. But let me kind of show you what the 3 phases are. And this map may not be real easy to see. In fact, could we maybe cut the light in front of here just to make that? I'm looking at you, DW, because I know you know what's working. I want to make sure folks can see. And again, this isn't the very best map, but okay, so this area I'm floating over here, this was the territory of the city of Bedford as it existed in 2013. The first phase of a boundary adjustment is shown in these yellow areas, and I'm just going to kind of float over them. Most of these consisted of commercial areas that were the subject of a revenue sharing agreement that existed prior to reversion. This area here is the old city landfill. And there were some other areas that represented split lots at the time. Those came in as part of phase 1. The original area of phase 2, which is, a lot of you folks are the property owners there, that's why you're here, is in this, it's kind of hard to see, it's in this red hatched area. And I'm just going to kind of start in this quadrant. This parcel here is Bison Printing. This is the land that's kind of back behind the Elks Home farm. It goes out to Little Otter Creek here. That's Little Otter. Then this is Highway 43. And this is a power line. The original boundary for the phase 2 adjustment that was agreed to 10 years ago was this transmission line that runs from 43 up to Fancy Farm Road, almost near the intersection of 122. From there, this is 122, Liberty High School's right here. And then Little Otter River again becomes a boundary for the phase 2 area down to the railroad tracks. Beyond that, there's this neighborhood here off of Smith Street. It's Stratford Drive and Heritage Court, which is attached to the city, or was attached physically to the city, but not part of the city. This is the Town and Country subdivision. So this was what was originally contemplated as phase 2 10 years ago. Beyond that, there's a hatched area here. This goes from the power line up to Fancy Farm Road up across from the Country Club. And this is an area that's mainly accessed by Shiloh Church Road up on Lowe's, out through Belltown in that area, that constitutes what was defined as phase 3. And I basically just wanted to orient you all on that before I go to the next slide here, which tells you a little bit more about what each phase really means. Again, phase 1 mainly was the revenue sharing area. It was property the city already owned in the county, and it was split lots. That became part of the town of Bedford on July 1st, 2013. And at that time, in addition to the commercial areas, we added about 315 residents in the residential areas there. Phase 2 is what we're talking about now, and that is spelled out in the voluntary settlement agreement, which is a very voluminous document. It's posted online for everybody's review and information. But the specific section that we're looking at is section 9.7, and the language there says that the phase 2 boundary areas that have not already become part of the town by 2023 will become part of the town if council adopts an ordinance to do so. So there's been a lot of question about is it a done deal? Is it automatic? What I will tell you is procedurally, town council still has to adopt an ordinance. But under this agreement, that's, I'm not going to say that's all they have to do, but that's the only procedural requirement that the state passed on. Now, part of the reason we're here is that's not enough. We want to make sure that you all clearly understand what was done 10 years ago and what's about to happen, we think, in another few months, and what that means. While I mentioned it, phase 3, that area, the town has the right to take that in 5 years from now by passing an ordinance. However, there are conditions that have to be met there. And the conditions are that that area has to be under development of some kind. We've talked about that extensively at the staff level with council, and what I will tell you publicly is we don't think that's going to happen. And we don't have any intention of pursuing it. Phase 3 is on the map, but the performance criteria will not be met, and frankly, if we do follow through on this phase 2, we're going to focus on providing services there, and that's going to keep us occupied. So that aspect of the reversion agreement expires in 2028. 2028, we're just a normal town like any other town. Most of the provisions of the voluntary settlement agreement go away. There are some that will stay in effect, but that's the schedule. Now, one of the things we're aware of is that not many people apparently knew this was happening, and that's very unfortunate, and that's one of the reasons we're here, because that's not acceptable. I will say that internally and at a staff level in the council, this has been on our radar since 2013, and we have been planning for it. If you go online, and we'll make this presentation available on our website, so you can click these directly. We'll also provide written copies if anybody wants it. But our comprehensive plan, which we adopted 6 years ago, mentioned that this was going to happen and how we were intending to provide the services. So, again, for the folks who were not aware of it, we're terribly sorry about that because it was never our intention to be anything but transparent. Again, that's one of the reasons we're here tonight. The other thing I'll tell you is, as we've gotten closer to this July 1st, 2023 date, we've stopped a few times, analyzed things, and asked the council for input. Back in August 9th to be specific, staff came to council and talked again about this is scheduled to happen under the voluntary settlement agreement. We need to know if the intent is to move forward so we can make arrangements for service provision. And I'm going to talk about the services in just a moment. Also with that though, I showed you that boundary and I mentioned specifically the power line. We took a look at those areas that were included in the original map, and frankly from a staff level and a council level, we all agreed some of those didn't make a whole lot of sense. And things do change over time. Things that might have been a great idea in 2013 maybe have a different light in 2022 at that point. So in addition to asking if council were going to move forward, we also, with council's help, amended the area that was going to be taken in phase 2. And council unanimously voted to do that. And this is the next slide I want to show you. Although the original boundary was farther than this, what council did back in August was to take certain areas off the table. And some of those were this area behind the Elks home, this other area here behind this power line, a few other split lots, and then some farmland adjacent to town and country that, you know, frankly, we didn't intend to provide urban services for. So one of the things we did, and those of you who have property here, this is the map of the area that is currently being contemplated as being taken in July 1st. And again, I'll just go back and reorient you. Again, this is Bison Printing. This is a vacant piece of property off 43. It's in a trust we refer to as Redlands. Then again, we pick up the Little Otter River, and the Little Otter River is now the boundary all the way down to the railroad of the proposed area. That includes North Hills, that includes the area on Boone Drive. Of course, it includes some land off of 221. Stratford Drive and Heritage Court are still included. Town and Country is still included, but this adjacent farm that's, I think, managed by the Wolfett family is not. So the scale of it has changed based on the recommendation of council. Now, this probably is more relevant to people who are already in town, but you may be curious about what the impact's going to be. Right now, our population is hovering right around 6,700. We also have some development projects underway that we know are going to increase that. But for the purposes of what's going to happen, we think on July 1st, there are about 500 households involved in the area that we're going to plan to take in. We think that's going to add about 1,000 people. So part of the discussion of this is the growth of the town and the community. And I will tell you that we don't have any aims to grow recklessly. We don't intend to become a metropolis. We don't really want to be a big city, to be perfectly honest. We do need to attract some growth to maintain certain services. And also I will tell you, what we found is there are certain national retailers that we all talk about we'd like to see come here, and I'm not going to name names because that's not appropriate. But in our efforts to attract those, what we found is they're looking for places with population. So we're trying to carefully balance having a population that's big enough, and I'm just going to throw 10,000 out as a figure of something that's as big as Bedford ever ought to be. And that's my personal opinion, which you didn't ask for, but that's my vision as the employee of council. If we did that, we probably could attract some of the retailers like certain chicken franchises that come up from time to time. I will tell you that based on the growth of the county and based on the fact that we're within a radius of about 300,000 people within 20 miles, we are starting to get those things anyway. But there is some intentional growth associated with these boundary adjustments. That's part of the reason we're pursuing it. Just wanted to be honest about that. But there is a limit to that. And again, it's very important that Bedford is Bedford and we don't become like a metropolitan area or the places that a lot of you moved from to get away from. We recognize that some growth is necessary, but character is most important, and we're committed to manage that. One of the biggest issues that's on your mind, I know, is taxation. And the fact of the matter is, the town collects some of the same taxes that the county does, namely real estate and personal property. I will tell you that real estate tax is a pretty significant portion of our income, but it's not the biggest. In our current year budget, it's $1.7 million out of about $11 million. And our personal property tax rate, again, is something that we do collect and the county collects, but we do it in a different way. And I want to talk to you about those two things specifically and provide some information there. All properties within the town are subject to the town's real estate tax rate, which is currently 31 cents per hundred. Town residents pay that in addition to the county real estate tax rate, which is currently 50 cents per hundred. Now, what I will tell you is both jurisdictions, based on the reassessment, and that's a popular topic too with that, are lowering their tax rate. So our budget proposal for next year that we're already working on is projected to drop to 29 cents. When I say it's projected to drop to 29 cents, that's the most it can be. So it is definitely dropping from 31 to 29. The other thing I'll tell you is we both jurisdictions and the state provides relief. We do have tax relief available. We understand there are some elderly people who are on fixed incomes. There are veterans who are entitled to real estate waivers too. Come talk to our finance director. We'll connect you with those to make sure that you're not being overly burdened with this additional tax. And I will admit up front, it's a significant increase for you. If you're paying 50 cents now, 31 cents is over a 60% increase. We don't want to minimize that. We do feel badly about it, but we can't explain what we do with that money. Let me jump to the personal property tax real quick and explain how we do that though. And that is really different. Our current personal property tax rate is $1.06 per $100 assessed value above $20,000. So what that means is you are only taxed on any vehicle, load, or qualifying property that is valued at $20,000 or more. If you don't own a car that's worth $20,000, you don't get a personal property tax bill from us. Essentially, in the county, and I'll give the Board of Supervisors credit for being very sensitive to the effects of the reassessment, they provided a rebate, which was a wonderful thing. We've already built that into our structure. We basically provide you with a credit or a rebate up front. So ideally, that personal property tax rate won't have as much impact on you as the real estate tax rate. Again, we know that any increase is significant, so I'm not going to make light of that. I'm not going to be dishonest about it. Just want you to be aware of what our philosophy is. Now, the question is, well, what do I get for my 31 cents currently? And one of my colleagues has developed this breakdown, kind of showing how that is distributed among the various service areas that we're involved in. So for an average home value of $200,000, and I know full well that several of you in the room got assessments that are in excess of that, this will be the breakdown on that. $200,000 is an average town-wide for what we say, but we know, given the nature of how the assessment occurred, that it's going to be bigger than that. But basically for your 31 cents, the biggest chunk of it for us is public works. We'll talk about those services, public safety. And then administrative stuff. We're the government. We are a bureaucracy. That includes me. That's about a nickel of that 31 cents. And then the rest is 7 cents, which goes to capital projects, which frankly we don't have a lot of currently, but we are prepared to provide those projects to you if you were brought in as taxpayers. Also, our debt service is currently 3 cents. That is coming down. We have restructured our debt, and I would really love to get rid of that, and we can do that if we avoid taking on huge projects and huge debt. I don't know that we're going to be able to, but that's our goal. And then there are parks, civic support, and community development. So let me start with our biggest service cost, public works. And I'm not going to read this to you all can see what this, I'm just giving you this as an example. One question that's come up is the city sidewalks policy. The city's goal is to put sidewalks on every single street within town limits, wherever town limits might exist. I'm not going to live to see that. That's the goal. The way we intend to accomplish that is inside out. Middle of town for us is Bridge and Main. We have a plan where we will work out from that intersection, and when we reach an area that doesn't have a sidewalk, we'll put one in. Now, there are exceptions to that. If there are areas that it makes sense to get ahead of that schedule, and we have other funding available, we'll take advantage of that. We built a sidewalk on Burks Hill Road that provided a pedestrian connection to Liberty Lake Park. That was done through a VDOT grant. Very little town local revenue was tied up. We also had another VDOT project that allowed us to extend the sidewalk on Peak Street out to Nichols Road, and for those of you that might live out past Boone Drive, if you walk the loop, maybe you had a chance to take advantage of that. We do intend to extend sidewalks to Town and Country, Stratford, North Hills. And the way we'll do that, and we'll mention what community development does, is through our comprehensive planning process. So if you don't want sidewalks, when we engage in the comprehensive planning process and you're in town, you need to tell us that, because we're planning to provide that. And that is part of our goal again, put sidewalks on every street. Street lights are another issue too. We discovered, is anybody here from Peakland Court?
Yes.
You'll have street lights in front of your houses that you're paying for.
If they're turned on.
If they're turned on.
That's fine.
And that's okay, because that's on your bill right now. We discovered that streetlights, again, we haven't made a commitment to say we're going to put streetlights on every street, because streetlights are a little bit different. Because candidly, streetlights might be a little intrusive if you're used to having a dark sky. So that's a service that we don't intend to put it out automatically unless you tell us to. So sidewalks, we intend to run them to you everywhere. And we will probably accelerate that if you come in, because frankly, we think you deserve some service for the tax you're going to be paying. Streetlights, you're going to have to tell us if you want them. And in the case of Peakland, we're prepared to take those over because we think they're actually in the right of way. But if you don't want us to hook them up, we won't hook them up. Either way, you won't be paying for them. I thought they might be. But thank you. The other thing we talked about a lot, and this probably has your attention, is we provide a lot of services at the curbside related to solid waste. And I know there's a private hauler right now that provides that service. My mother-in-law used to live on Vista Circle, so I'm familiar with Sharp Brothers and the excellent service they provide. However, I'm also aware that for $25, they will come get your trash can and empty it once a week. For $25, we come get it. We'll also take your brush. We'll also take your dishwasher when you replace it. My public works director sitting here, he's going to be unhappy with me, but basically what I'm telling you is for $25 a month, you put it out, we're going to take it. Now, if you still want to haul it to the landfill, you absolutely can. If you want to make use of the private hauler in addition to what we do, you can. We are charging for that service because we are mandated to provide it, and we do that separately. It's not covered through taxes, it's separate, and there's a reason for that. There are certain places where it may not make sense to provide that service due to safety reasons or other factors, and I'm going to use an example from phase one. We took in some houses that are on 460, and I mean the highway. What we found was those folks had other arrangements for solid waste. They wanted to opt out. we can't really safely stop a garbage truck on Highway 460, and they didn't want us coming on their property. So in that case, we made an exception when we told them, okay, we won't provide that service and we won't charge you for it. However, if you change your mind, we still have to provide it. So really, that's one of those things where it's a level of service that we're obligated to provide by town code, by state regulations, and by our solid waste plan. So I've heard from a lot of you that you're happy with the service you have, and I'm familiar with the folks that provide it. They do a good job. We are obligated to provide that, unless there's an exception, and frankly, those are pretty rare for us. So that's public works. Public safety is another significant expense for us. And one of the things I want to bring to your attention, something that we're already doing, our fire company is a volunteer staff. However, the town does provide some payment in the form of a stipend for certain positions. We also provide incentive pay for volunteers. All of that has really created a really tangible benefit for all of us that you may not be aware of. The ISO, and that's the Insurance Services Organization, performs ratings of all fire companies across the country. And basically the ratings are on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the best, 10 being the lowest. For years, the town has been rated as a 4, which is not unusual. About 30% or more of all fire companies in the country are rated a 4 or better. Based on our most recent rating, which we just received a few months ago, we've gotten that down to a 3. And the way we did that was by increasing our pay that we're providing to the volunteers, and we got credit for that. When I say that there's a rating of 1 to 10, less than 1% of all fire departments in the country are rated a 1. I think all of them are staffed by career fire staff. We're not at that level. Now, I will tell you, it's on our radar because we need to be aware of it for planning purposes. But only 15% or fewer of all fire departments in the country are at a 3. And that's a pretty good thing. And that has meaning for you if you're a homeowner, because you ought to get a break on your fire insurance. Because the insurance companies do look at that, and it should be part of your assessment. And if they're not doing that, check with your agent, make sure they know that you are in an area that's got a 3 rating. The other thing I'll tell you is we're going to try to improve that. Talk to Chief Stone. It's on a 10-point scale. Right now we're at a 73, which is right in the lower range of 3. If we can get that up to 80, we can get down to a 2, which gets us a better discount. Anyway, probably weren't aware of that, may not be interested in it. But the other significant cost center for us is our police department. And the town has its own police department. Of course, the sheriff's office provides law enforcement as well. Duplication of services is an excellent question. What I'm going to tell you is, I can't answer. I think we do things differently, but we work very well together. There are some ways that we're very different, but the mission is the same. And I think, as a town resident, we're very well served by the sheriff's office. One of the things I've got on the list here is the fact that we focused on 8.75 square miles with 24 sworn officers means that we can get to you pretty quickly. So if you're a town resident, you call the Bedford Police Department, we can get to you probably a little quicker than the sheriff's office. That is not a criticism in any way of the sheriff's office, because 8.7 square miles is a whole lot easier to cover quickly than 750 square miles.
795.
Thank you. Sheriff's office does a good job of that. But one of the benefits of being town is that quicker response time. The other thing I'll tell you, though, is we do respond to calls now in the Phase 2 areas. If you call 911 and our officers are able to get there quick, we're going to respond. We've been doing that. The same is true with the county, though. If we get calls and we're down people on the ship, the sheriff's office responds there too. So it's a good relationship. I would tell you, we don't really, it's hard to define it as different. Some of our differences are just structural. Sheriff Miller, who's here, glad to see you, is elected to his position. Our chief is appointed and works at the will and pleasure of the town manager. A lot of our differences probably don't mean much to you guys at all. And frankly, What I'll tell you about public safety is, if you never need these services, that's fantastic. We still have to provide them. But we don't want there to be any confusion. I'm not aware of any real conflict between departments. I think they work really well together, and we do appreciate that. But they're different, but they're similar in mission. And I'll be happy to talk more about that if you want to. Another thing is a nickel of your 31 cents goes to pay bureaucrats like me. And we're here to keep the government stuff going. I will tell you that part of what is included is in our finance department. Town is in pretty good financial shape right now. With the reversion, there was a lot of concern, a lot of questions that the city was going bankrupt. That was not the case. Now, I will tell you candidly, my observation, and that of the people in charge back then too, was that being an independent city did not make a lot of sense for Bedford. Because frankly, we were not providing most of the services that a city provided anyway. But we had 60% of the costs associated with it. And the county was doing most of that by contract. And by becoming a town and getting out of it, we got rid of those expenditures. Plus, for 15 years, we were able to get the county a little bit of relief from the state to offset their costs. But all that said, 2013, when we were a town, we had about $2 million in the bank, unrestricted net assets. That's the money that is discretionary that we have available for a rainy day or for projects, what have you. Currently, right now, that's at a level of $3.9 million. As we look at projects, you may have questions about our proposed police department. We can talk about that tonight. We have cash on hand to address that project if it goes forward. We also have funding from the American Rescue Plan Act of a couple $1 million. So if we take on a big capital project, we're going to try really hard to avoid financing that entirely through debt and putting that burden on people for a long time. Mainly, I just wanted to let you know that for your nickel, we are looking at ways that we can maximize your money because it is your money. It's not our money. The other thing I'll tell you, in case you're wondering, my role is purely administrative in this process and everything else. I work at the will and pleasure of the town council. I do not have a term of office. I can be removed anytime by a vote of the majority, and hey, that's the life I chose. I'm not complaining, but motivates me to do well for you, and that might become an issue with something else I'll bring up later on. Community development is another one of those things you probably don't think much about. There are a couple of areas here that frankly are a duplication of services, and I'll explain how. Building code enforcement and economic development and promotion are services that the county provides and that are funded through taxes that we as town residents are paying, so we are being double taxed. What we found when we became a town was certain assumptions we had were incorrect. One of those was that the county could provide the services in the town and urban setting, relatively urban setting, that we had been providing. What we discovered was the building official at the time, who was an extraordinarily well-qualified gentleman, did not have experience in historic buildings, many of which we have downtown. So as a result of that, a few years after reversion, the council decided to get back in the building and code enforcement business. The other duplication is in economic development. That's working really well for us, and that's, again, not very obvious, but I'll tell you, there are specific grant programs in particular that require 2 jurisdictions to sign on before you can even move forward. The fact that we have a town and a county that can work together to get on that radar is already paying dividends. You may never see that. One of the things I want to mention though too is our property maintenance code, and that is a little bit different. Yes, there are some structures that need some attention in town. We're working on those. In fact, we're seeing some redevelopment of some properties that have been vacant for years. The property maintenance code allows us to do something other than just board those up. Now, when I say that too, we also have to balance the interests of property owners. When we do code enforcement, we'll talk. If your grass gets high, we've got a standard that deals with that, and we'll communicate with you about that. We don't intend to get involved in disputes between neighbors. If you file, or we handle code enforcement much the same way the county does there. It's on a complaint basis. But what we're able to do is to give people access to ways to fix up old things other than just board them up. And we're seeing that on the railroad area. The middle school sat vacant for a while. That's an example. We still have the Woolen Mill building, which is sitting there right now. Yeah, it's a bit of an eyesore, that's my opinion. We did just get a grant to help that property owner do something with it. So, again, it's not a benefit that's obvious, but, and then there are also appointed boards that help us with that. The Planning Commission oversees zoning. The Redevelopment Housing Authority is helping fix up some old houses. They have a grant program that helps people do that. And then the Economic Development Authority is really taking an active role in trying to build back the economy. We all know that the manufacturing sector here is not what it used to be. It's still relatively robust. We still have about 20% of our workforce, I think, in manufacturing, which is pretty significant. But when, for example, Wheelabrator goes out of business due to reasons that have nothing to do with Bedford, our Economic Development Authority is moving in to try to revitalize that and make it something that is useful to the community and not just an eyesore. And that's underway. We also offer a streamlined permitting inspections process. Let me talk about zoning for a minute too, because I know that's important. The zoning that we intend to apply is basically what you have. And I know some of you are farmers. If you have your property and land use, you can do that in the town. If you've got livestock, you can do that in the town. Basically, if you're doing something right now, we don't intend to disrupt that. And our zoning is mainly just intended to provide some predictability, not dictate to you what you can do with your property. Because frankly, we think you know better than we do. But you should not observe any change there. What you're doing, keep doing it. The electric utility isn't really part of this discussion, but as customers, I just wanted to throw this in to let you know how it works. The main reason we're in the electric business is over 100 years ago, nobody else was going to do it. And we built a hydro plant on the James River, and we ran lines to town. That's the basic story. Since then, we've gotten pretty good, although lights still go out from time to time, but we're trying really hard to avoid that. Our focus is completely on customer service. We need to have the resources to do that, and our approach for what you're paying in electric rates, we're trying to keep those rates low. Right now, we're a little lower than AEP and Southside, which are next to us. We're also trying to reinvest in the system so the power does not go out. And the other thing is just to maintain reliability. If the lights do go out here, we get them back pretty darn quick. And that, we're proud of that, and that's a standard for us. We intend to improve on that. The other thing I'll tell you is, even though 60% of our customer base is in town and right around town, we spend most of our time out towards Big Island. So I know, those folks pay the bills and they kind of wonder what they're getting in return. Well, most of our efforts are there, but again, that's not an obvious thing. The other benefits you get from us being in the business is, if you're irate about your bill, you can come yell at me, you can come yell at my staff, you can yell at the board of directors because they're here. Whereas investor-owned utilities, well, you'll pay what they tell you to pay. Most of our power we purchase from elsewhere. We do generate some from our hydroelectric plant. We have a solar plant. Most of it we buy from American Municipal Power. Water and sewer has come up also. The town got out of that business back in 2014. So there is no town water and sewer department at all. We're all served by the Bedford Regional Water Authority, much like everybody else. The main impetus for that was when the city had its own water system. The only source we had was up on Stony Creek Reservoir on Wheats Valley Road. The quality of that water was amazing, and those of you on the water system may or may not agree with that. We were really susceptible to drought, though. And I can tell you, I've been with the organization for 23 years. There were several times before the water authority took over that we almost had mandatory limits on water use. Really close a few times. The main thing that the water authority did for us when it was created was to run a line to Smith Mountain Lake. And we all have opinions about the quality of that water, and I probably won't disagree with any of them. But we're pretty much bulletproof in terms of drought now. So it's a bit of a trade-off. You may not have been aware of that, but that was one of the reasons the water authority was created. The good news is we're not lacking for water. We're probably never going to run out. I shouldn't say that. The other thing is the water authority is fixing up the old system that we had. They have a crew dedicated to working on fixing things here in town. We didn't give them a gently used system when we transferred it to them. Now, the other thing we can do, and this is kind of similar to sidewalks, we can engage the water authority to add services if you want that. I've talked to a few people who have asked if you're going to get sewer service. What I will tell you is if that's something you're interested in, let us know, and we will talk to the water authority about funding a capital project. The other thing I'll tell you, is anybody here from Town and Country? The work that's going on right now is being funded by the town. So the town is already investing $2 million of ARPA money into that, and that's an example. If you want the service, we are able to help you get it. If you don't, we understand that. If your septic tank's fine, again, my mother-in-law was on a well and septic, she had no problems, great. But it's not really part of the town doesn't directly provide those services, so we're not really offering them as part of this process. But we can assist if you want. Now, we also have several opportunities for you to get involved formally if you are a resident of the town. There are 7 council members who are just regular, good old volunteer citizens like you who are willing to do that and run. In addition to that, we also have several appointed boards that do several things too. And frankly, we always have a little bit of trouble finding people to serve on those. So if you do find yourself as a town citizen come July 1st, I would encourage you to maybe check out service on the Planning Commission. That's the first step in reviewing development proposals. They handle things like zoning and planning, obviously, and title. The Redevelopment and Housing Authority is really tasked right now with helping maintain the housing stock. We have some areas of town that are lower income, and those folks may have a little bit of difficulty maintaining their properties. The Housing Authority has been able to provide grants at a very low cost to do that. And we also currently have a community development block grant. So redevelopment and housing, it's heavy on the housing. The Economic Development Authority, again, is tasked with making sure we have a robust economy. That, let me tell you again about another standard. Robotex, I don't know, let's say Robotex employed 1,000 people in its heyday. I believe that's probably true. If we can get another industry that employs 1,000 people, we'll go after it. That's a given. You also know that's probably not likely. So our strategy is to do what we can to help the businesses we have. And in terms of recruiting people, yeah, we'll go for the home run. If we can get 1,000 people in here, we'll do that. We'll have a community discussion about that because that'll also have impacts. But what we're really trying to do is attract 50 businesses that employ 20 people. And the net result's about the same. And in that case, if Toyota wants to come in here and build a car plant, that's going to have some impact. That might be negative. So again, the Economic Development Authority is focused on that kind of thing, making sure that we can replace what we've lost in a way that's not, well, that doesn't behave in a way that's not Bedford. I'll just use that term. We also have the Keep Bedford Beautiful Commission, which is focused on litter control, and we appoint 2 people to the Bedford Regional Water Authority Board of Directors. And I'm close to shutting up and letting you guys talk to me here. The next steps in the process, April 11th at the regular town council meeting, we will have a public hearing dedicated to this issue. So what I'm going to tell you is, in a minute, I'm just going to turn it over to you. If you have opinions you want to share tonight, that's fantastic. I'll be happy to hear them and take them to council. But also, if you want to take advantage of it, April 11th, there will be a public hearing dedicated to this issue. Tell us what's on your mind. Tell us how you feel about it. Tell us what we can do better, worse, the same about it. Then on May 9th, Town Council is scheduled to take action on that ordinance. And that's what I was telling you about procedurally. That's what has to happen to make this phase 2 thing actually go forward. The reason it's going forward on May 9th on the agenda is because assuming that we do move to bring you all into the town limits, and right now our assumption is that's going to happen, we have to have preparations to provide you with the service. Because the next thing is, assuming that ordinance passes on July 1st, you are entitled to full provision of all town services that you are paying for. Other thing I'm gonna tell you though is July 1st is a Saturday, so July 1st is a Saturday and the 4th of July is a Tuesday, and that's a holiday, so we don't make our trash collection folks work on the holidays. What we're gonna do, if we can, we've ordered a trash truck that's supposed to come next month, is we'll probably begin picking your trash up that last week in June. Now, you're not gonna be billed for that, but it won't show up on your tax bill till July 1st. Just didn't want to be clear about that. I didn't want to promise you something that you may not see. July 1st, you're certainly entitled to the services, but if there's a holiday, we don't run the trash truck then, but we pick it up either the day before or the day after. And in this case, we'll probably start a week. Now, because of the population change that would be associated with this, we will have to have a special election this November. And all 7 council seats will be up for grabs. That means the 7 incumbents are going to have to run again if they decide to run again. If you're interested in serving on council and you want to guide the policies of the place, that's great. It's a good opportunity. Probably going to offend my current bosses by telling you that, but it is the truth. Our council members generally serve a 4-year term that's staggered. Since this is in the middle, this one's going to be a little bit different in November, so I don't want to complicate things with too much information, but when this election takes place this November, the top 3 vote getters will basically get a 3-year term, and the next 4 will get a 1-year term. And then in November of next year, we have a regular election for a 4-year term. I'm telling you all this in case you want to exercise your political rights related to this issue. There are 2 opportunities within the next 18 to 24 months where a majority of council seats are up for grabs. And that concludes my presentation. At this point, again, we did this to try to anticipate questions and answers. I'm sure you have other questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. And I will stay here as long as you have questions. So, yes, sir.
My land borders the river on both sides.
Yes.
So does that happen? One question. Are we going to have to pay the county and the city forever on the taxes?
If you were taken in, yes, sir.
And I live on a private road. You and I talked about this a long time ago. And we're not going to get any service. You know, policemen may come down, the sheriff comes down, but they got turned around in my yard. You know, and garbage truck ain't going to make it. Because we live on a little private main road. What's going to happen? And I talked to you before, and we talked to you about whether we were going to get shafted, and you agreed with that. Now, what's changed?
Not much has changed since we talked. In terms of the solid waste service, I'll tell you, if you want it, we're obligated to provide it, and we'll figure out a way to make it work, but we're going to have to do it on your property. So in your case, that'd probably be an exception, and you won't be paying for that. Otherwise, in terms of what you pay for taxes and what you get, your opinion of the value of that service is, I'm not going to try to change your mind on that, because that's your opinion, and I respect that.
But like the road maintenance and snow removal and stuff?
We don't do that on private roads. That's correct.
You will do it?
We do not. Any other questions?
What about the lot, land going on both sides of the road?
Yeah, we looked at that too. The thing about that though too is we didn't really create that issue. I don't know how long, it's probably been your family for a while, I'm guessing.
37 years.
Okay. Yeah, you would only pay taxes on the portion in the town to the town. The other side of the little lottery, you wouldn't pay us, but you'd still pay the county. It is going to be complicated. I apologize for that.
There's some people involved, so.
Do we have lots that are split by the river? You'll have the same issue.
No, I won't.
Well,
I'll be blunt. You go from the hospital to the river. Most of the people who live along there are elderly folks, whether veterans like myself, on a very fixed income. I'm sorry, we've spent a small fortune over the last 6 years rehabbing that basically unsalable
adjust the rate to account for it, but that's correct.
What about the personal property tax on fire equipment? You mentioned cars and trucks.
Anything that's out, you get the same credit on everything. So if your farm equipment is worth, any individual piece is worth more than 20,000, you'd only pay on that portion of 20,000. If you're paying personal property tax on it. Mr. Miller, yes, sir?
Yes, sir. So, I've heard mixed signals here tonight.
Sure.
I've heard that council, which I know there's 4 in the room, still has the option of voting on this in May. But yet, town's gone ahead and assumed this is gonna happen.
That's correct.
Okay. So, how is council gonna honestly and openly listen to our comments, just like this gentleman, if this happened, he's leaving. We're also going to hurt 2 businesses in this county with Sharps. I also have Bay's Brothers pick up my trash. My trash costs me $20.25 a month. It's going up to $25 a month. I'm not getting anything there other than $5 extra. Because we have, on our mini farm, we have a burn pile.
Mhm.
Well, I hear now, we can't burn on that. That's what I've been told by council, that we can't burn anymore. It's what we can't do if this annexation takes place.
I'll need to check with the fire chief, but I don't know why that would necessarily change, but I'll get you that
I've
answer.
been told that by council, is what I've been told. This gentleman is exactly right. You got, majority is gonna be senior citizens. This is going to affect their lifestyle. So what is council expecting them to do? Okay? I'm gonna ask this on April the 11th too. Are you wanting them to give up their medication? Are you wanting them to give up a meal to make this tax happen? Nobody 10 years ago could expect or predict the economy today. Channel 13, I DVR'd it. I went back today before this meeting and made sure I was right. Federal government just went up on interest rates again. 2 banks have now closed. More banks are on shaky ground, is what they are. That was on 13 last night. Okay? I got my notes here, I'm trying to.
You can use it, that's right.
That's what I'm trying to do, okay? Because there was some other points there that I wanted to make real quick. Don't mind. Oh. Sorry. It's on that. My wife told me there's no way I'm gonna get 7 days. All right, so a lot of things are going on in our, a lot of things are going on in our economy right now that affects citizens in this community. Okay, you've already said we duplicate our services. So why are we worried about the annexation? Is what I'd like to know. If you said, I agree 100%, you got a great sheriff's office, we got a great police department, we have a great fire department, we have a great rescue squad, we got a great electrical company. VDOT services us very well, at least in my section, our section of the county, VDOT does. What else are we gonna get for 60% tax increase? What are we gonna get for that? You know, and admittedly, and I appreciate your honesty, you said sidewalks, but not in our lifetime. Okay, I wrote it down.
Oh, no, we will not have every street covered in my lifetime.
But with that, I know because of my father-in-law, who was William American, who lived at 1529 Oakwood Street. If you put sidewalks in front of a senior citizen's house, you have 24 hours after the snow to shovel that beautiful sidewalk that the town's building for me. He was more worried about that because it says you can find him than he was his own driveway, is what it was. That's taxpayers. That's people that want. Why would we
Mr. Miller, and I do appreciate that, and I'm sure other folks do feel the same.
Kind of gloss over zoning.
Yes.
And there was just a very short snippet of your presentation there. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling, insecure in the fact that our land use is now, while you say that we can continue doing things, what caveats are there to that? Are we only going to be allowed to do it for a certain amount of time? What land uses are included? Someone over here brought up burning, I think it was Sheriff Frank. You mentioned livestock, chickens. I mean, what land uses are okay now that you're saying are going to be carried forward?
And those are covered in our zoning ordinance as well. If you're in, the county probably has you zoned agricultural residential now, I'm guessing. Our zoning will be R1. We allow agriculture as a use by right within that. So there's not really any time.
More limited, and, if the R1 zone is more limited, it tightens down the county ordinance, even municipally, it can make a big difference. So I'm just kind of curious what kind of non-conforming uses are going to carry forward and be permitted, and if so, for how long?
We do not intend to make any existing use non-conforming. The other thing I'll tell you is we're in the process of rewriting our zoning ordinance. This is a very timely discussion. And we do have agricultural uses within the existing town limits too, so we're sensitive to that already. Certainly don't want to create a problem where none exists. No, I'm glad you brought that up.
That's primarily my concern.
Yes, and I made a note of that, thank you. She had her hand up, no.
Since the town does not recycle anymore,
Yes.
we have to take our recycling to the dump. So at the same time, we take our trash. So why would we want trash collection? We don't think we should have to pay for that.
And the only explanation that's what's in the present, I'm obligated to do that based on the way we account for solid waste. You don't have to use it, but
Yeah, but we still have to pay for it. Then why don't you start recycling again? The county recycles.
Everybody's got to pay for
Yeah, but that's.
trash removal.
yes. Well, actually, you had a question first, and I'll come back to it.
I just have an interesting observation. The town of Bedford, historically, it's always based on respect for veterans, and yet we're knowingly going forward to displace a large number of elderly people, including veterans. That just seems like the height of hypocrisy to me.
Well, and again, I respect your event. There is tax relief available for the elderly and for veterans, and we're happy to talk to you about that. No, I'm sorry, you had a question first.
Yeah, I live on Draper Road. My dad lives above me, my sister-in-law lives below me, and I live 1,200 and some feet off the maintained road.
Okay.
All right, what's that gonna do about my trash? I gotta go take it up and put it in his front yard.
Again, these are situations that we can talk to you about. If there's no practical way to
Take
do
my
it.
leaves, my sticks. I gotta pull all that stuff up and put it in his front yard for him to pick it up. Gotta take it out, I gotta order him.
It's a curbside level service, that's the answer.
See, we already on city water, so we got work.
Yes, I had paid the city water 1,200 feet for the maintained road, which I don't think I should have had paid for, because I just drilled a well the same year and put the house there. That I was jeopardized. They told me they jeopardized me, so my real estate went down 60-some thousand, instead of 80-some thousand, because of the underground water. I might be the ones in jeopardy over the whole thing. And that went to crap. They took and I got city water down there. Now my house is paid for $160-some thousand.
That was from the dog.
Yeah, from the banks.
Uh,
But I got a whole lot of things going on here. And he's on fixed income, I'm on fixed income, and I'm just had heart surgery, I'm a diabetic, I got blood pressure, sugar, everything. And I'm lucky to even pay my doctor bills.
Come talk to us about tax relief if you end up with
Well, I'm the lucky one. I'll be 88 years old tomorrow, so I ain't gotta worry about it.
I hope that's not true at all. There was a question in the back, and yes, sir.
Good question.
finance director, and the additional revenue from real estate tax was $400,000.
Yeah. Property, nice chat.
No, that's 50,000 for purchase.
Yes,
We're talking less than $500,000.
correct.
I'd like to get this garbage thing cleared up in my mind. Everybody that gets annexed is going to have to pay for garbage pickup.
Yes,
Regardless of whether they use it.
unless there is a compelling reason that we can't provide service, yes.
I'm half a mile, my house is a half, my driveway's a half mile.
And Jim, look, if you have individual cases, we will certainly talk to you about those individual cases to analyze that one.
And also the burning, right?
The burning, I've got to check on because I don't know why that would change.
I
just
don't
because of
burn
the
my
time.
leaves, so I don't get them in here.
I mean, the fire marshal is,
I
fire
have
marshal
trees
in
that
town.
fall over and the fences and stuff, and I usually take and put the limbs and stuff in a pile where I can burn it later when it's safe.
And you can continue to do that.
Otherwise, you're gonna see one heck of a bunch of stuff out of that house.
Yes, we know. I'm sorry, there was another question, but sir, I think you had a question.
Yes. I live in North Hills, and I'm just, we've talked to a lot of our neighbors, and I haven't found anybody who isn't very disappointed about this annexation, especially among ourselves, who had no idea this was coming about when we moved here in 2017. It feels to me like we are being taken in to feed a bureaucracy. You know, I liked your presentation, but talking about bringing in chicken chains and things like that, you know, when any of the chains that look at where they're gonna put the facility, they don't look at the boundaries of the town. They look at a marketing area. I mean, unless there's some that don't, those are the ones that probably go out of business. But what can we do to stop this from happening? At least in North Hills. Now, all of it. Nobody's for it. And you know, you talk about our property goes up like theirs does right up to the Little Otter River. And a lot of hunters that go up and down that river, right? Both sides. You walk up there and you'll see deer blinds all up and down. It's a good thing because we have too many deer. So now what's going to happen, those people that hunt on our side are going to go to the other side. And we're going to be like a shooting gallery. I mean, there's already a lot going on. So if you're not going up to Fancy Farm, that would have solved the problem. So my main question is, what is residents, and I haven't found one resident that's for this, what can we do to stop this from happening, in your professional opinion?
You can speak to council about it. I think that's really all you can do, honestly.
Is that the purpose for a public hearing?
Yes.
But it's already assumed it's going to happen.
Yeah, let me speak to that. And Mike, I'm not contradicting. First off, the point has been raised that we do duplicate services. I'm not sure I agree with that. In fact, what I'm saying is, I can see why you would think that, though, easily. I'm not really prepared to refute that or accept it, so I just did want to clarify that. But the other thing is, from a staff level, again, my role is administrative. I'm not dodging. I just want you all to understand that it's my job to make this work for the town regardless of what happens. And from a staff level, we are planning so we can provide all the services we told you about. And we've heard loud and clear you don't want them, but I still have to provide them. So that's why we are planning for the eventuality that this will happen. If it doesn't happen, we know how to do that too. So I don't want anybody to be misled about that aspect of it. From a staff level, I think we're pretty good at what we do, where we do it. We're prepared to provide that to you, but that's just kind of where we are. So
I've not heard a single positive. Has anybody done a survey to see if any of the affected people really want this to happen? Frankly, if my real estate agent had done his job, I would not be sitting here because I would not have bought that property.
you know, that's a good point, and I don't really know how to respond to that. Again, my mother-in-law lived in Vista Circle until she had to go into memory care. And when we sold her house, I did tell the realtor, like, you do know this is in the work, and the realtor said she didn't know. I don't really know what to do about that. And look, I don't want to cast aspersions on realtors, but It's unfortunate that people didn't know about
The
it.
issue is you're affecting a bunch of people that just, they don't want to be affected.
The only thing I can tell you is these decisions were largely made 10 years ago, and that is correct. And they were agreed to by the Board of Supervisors, the City Council at the time, and by the State of Virginia. We did have immediate elections right after that the last time too.
City council is no longer exists.
As far as voting now, we pay taxes to the county.
Yes,
Do we vote for county people?
yes.
And we also vote for the town people?
All town residents are county residents. I'm trying to get people in the order they raise their hands. I'm not ignoring.
A minor point, other than North Hills, current tax is $1,500 a year under the proposed rate with the addition, change of the assessment, only change $2,800. So that's not a 60% increase, it's almost double, something like a 80 or 90% increase.
And that's based on your assessment, though. That's
They changed the assessment, I'm paying $1,500, I'm going to pay $2,800. It's almost double, that's one. Number two, the condition of the roads in North Hills, we've done to a poor degree, in my opinion, about 10, 15 years ago, and that should be done again. And just saying. And I don't want a street light in front of my house, and I don't want a sidewalk. Because I don't want to have to be responsible when I'm 90 years old.
maintenance of the streets would be the responsibility of the town. So, you know, we'd have to fix all the problems that would be out there. Okay, I'm sorry. Ma'am, you have a next question?
You know, I just want to understand something. You said, part of me has been told that this is a done deal, but then there's going to be another vote. Am I understanding this wrong, that it's not truly a done deal? There are other, I don't want to say avenues, but more people to sway.
Nah, I think that's correct. It's not a done deal in that council still has to adopt an ordinance,
That's right.
and they will consider that.
And so we need to get in touch with our town council representatives to not adopt this ordinance. Is that?
If that is your wish, yes.
Right. Okay, just want to make it clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Roger?
Two things to do with the electric department. On your slide, and I fully understand, it said that 70% of the maintenance of the electric department is in the county. I lived for 36 years on a hilltop out in Sedalia, and it was my understanding out there, we were right on the main line coming from the Snowden power plant, that we paid a higher, or paid some sort of surcharge because we were a county resident.
That's not correct.
That's not, no longer in effect at one time, I believe it was.
I don't know if it was, but I can tell you it's not out. All electric customers pay the same rate.
So everybody's paying the same. Well, that's good news. I was gonna ask if we were gonna see a reduction. Second thing, and this is somewhat outside of what we've been talking about tonight, but on Longwood Avenue, I don't know the house number, but it's diagonally across the street from where Oak Street runs into Longwood. There's a very large tree in the front yard, which has been in the process of being removed for some weeks.
Yes.
It doesn't appear that it's threatening the town electric lines there, but town electric department vehicles were there, the tractor sat there for some days, and then just today, they were sitting out there and they're whittling the tree down. So my question is, why is town electric paying to taking care of a tree, and I presume at no cost to the homeowner? I just had 3 trees removed from my yard yesterday and today, which I haven't gotten a bill yet, but I'm sure you're going to pay a pretty big bill. So why should somebody get a free service from the electric department to take a tree down out of their yard?
In that case, it was determined that the tree did impact the power line. Yes, sir.
I'm a county resident, but I'm a little concerned for our town residents. It looks to me like we're not bringing a lot of revenue in terms of the total budget. Has anybody got any numbers work to show that we would actually benefit the current, or are we going to actually hurt the current town residents by coming into the town?
Yes, we have done an analysis, and there will be no negative impact on the level of service. In fact, one of the things.
I'm not talking about level of service, I'm talking about their tax dollars being diverted.
The only reason we take your tax dollar is to provide the service. Let me be clear about that. We don't really want your money. We only take your money to provide the service, and the service costs money. So I'm not trying to be obtuse and respond to your question, but we're all about funding the level of service. And if the citizens of the town collectively decide they don't want a level of service, we don't do it. The example we have, and we went through this with reversion, was the city had a very robust recreation program once upon a time. We got out of that business with reversion because we assumed that the county would provide that same level of service. That was a decision that the citizens made through the elected council, and we did it. I will tell you, I think there's been some remorse on that part, because I won't criticize the level of service that County Rec provides, but it's certainly not the same. But again, part of this is we don't want to add to your tax burden if we're not going to provide you something. But as far as, yeah, what do we say, 500,000? That's just what we think we need to provide, what we listed on there. That's all.
What are you getting when you think if farmland is up against Little Otter, and you come all the way from 122 all the way over to the railroad tracks, it's either wild land or farmland?
I can answer that based on what the Commission on Local Government said 10 years ago. You won't like the answer, but I'm going to tell you what they said. That area is included, and certain green lands are included to provide areas for the town to physically expand. Now, whether we agree with that or not, that's why.
Well, some of us now have felt that way, that when they put the water lines and sewer lines out to the high school, they wouldn't let anybody connect to it.
Nope, we're not in the water and sewer business anymore, so I can't really. Other, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
What are the current town laws about fishing and shooting?
We do not allow the discharge of firearms within town limits. There is hunting through archery on a limited permit basis. And I'm looking at the chief who's sitting behind you. We do have a training range for the police department, but other than that.
So I can't hunt on my own property with a firearm.
Acres, and we deer hunt, and half of it's gonna be annexed into the town. We can no longer deer hunt or target shoot or use our land for any kind of recreation purposes.
You can, if you've got the acreage where it's not having any impact, I'm sorry, there are exceptions there. The other thing I'm gonna tell you is, this is just Mark Warner speaking tonight. If you can kill a deer, that's great. Kill a deer, put the rifle in its hooves, and we'll consider it a suicide. Sorry, that's a good concern. We do allow some hunting within town based on acreage. Again, the other gentleman.
No target shooting. Recreationally, no hunting, just target shooting.
I think that's correct, but let me follow up on that.
When you got a police department, you got guns steer in the city.
I'm sorry, Jim.
You have a police department that hunts deer in the city.
Yes. That's correct.
You can't target shoot unless it's out of gear.
I'm good if it's out. Again, that's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I live on the farm where they put the, well, I didn't live on it, but I did build a house on part of the property where it's solar panels were.
Yes.
I've owned it before they got it, the city hall. And right now, when the electric goes out, we lose our electricity more than anybody else, so we got solar panels. And the solar panels are right there.
Ain't no trick, really.
Yeah, they don't treat it.
That's, yeah, if we have outages, it's because of the
And
ocean.
water and stuff, where do you think the water's going when the solar panels are going? From the solar panels, that water from the ground and the skies is getting that water. Well, everybody's well and creeks and stuff gonna go dry. If they get all these solar panels tonight. It's got nothing to do but drinking water out there.
And again, I'll respect your opinion, sir. I'm really not here to debate anybody. I just want to provide information and provide you some honest answers. Yes, sir, you still have a question.
Could we go back to your last PowerPoint? My name's Steve Singleton. We moved out here and built a house on Peakland in 2010. We would not have done that had we known this was going to take place. But that's not my point. I'm trying to look at
Yes.
So, who chose May 9, 2023 as the date that this probably, if, maybe, might? I've fought lawyers for 40 years in human resources. None of those words work.
Sir, it will be on the agenda May 9th.
But my point going forward, the current town council is gonna take care of itself. That's what all of this is about. It's a money grab. 400 grand to help with a police station we don't need. Are we gonna simultaneously decrease the number of county sheriffs by this land grab? Why shouldn't May 9th be after the election on November 7th, when all 7 people are cleared out? And new people are put in who are not biased and not out for themselves.
I'll respond to your specific question. The election on November 7th doesn't happen unless the action takes place on May 9th. That special election is triggered by a population increase.
But it's too late.
But you've already done the self-serving thing by making the decision to move forward with phase 2. Is it written in law or regulation that it will happen on May 9th? Where did that date come from?
Well, this is not the only issue before council. We're also in the process of adopting our budget.
Right?
And our budget is typically adopted in May, typically at the second meeting in May. So if council does not adopt the ordinance on May 9th, that will affect the budget adoption, which takes place at the second meeting. We're not trying to hide anything. So, I mean, I just want to be clear about that.
The sale of the land up at the watershed,
Not happening.
that was not hidden or someone didn't try to hide that. I mean, that sounded
No,
something I was.
since you brought that up, I'll be happy to explain that. When the town created the water authority, we owned property up with the reservoir that we transferred to the Bedford Regional Water Authority. The town retained several parcels adjacent to that. Unbeknownst to anybody on staff and currently on council, there are deed restrictions associated with that. So the entire discussion of that property was always speculative. The town owns several pieces of property in town and in the county that frankly it may or may not have any use for. So council was in the process of talking about properties that may be declared surplus. And I mentioned that, it's a bureaucratic term, why doesn't mean anything. We cannot sell property without declaring it surplus. That was the discussion that was being had that we didn't follow through with. In the meantime, we had 2 private individuals approach us and make offers on that property, which anybody has a right to do. We did not consider those. We won't consider those. In fact, I'm telling you, and talked to John Barnhart about it last week, there's a retraction. We have no plans to sell that property. Now, if there were private discussions that were held with individuals, I can't speak to that. The official position of the town is we are not selling those parcels. And I'm on the record.
So again, I ask why, everybody goes through budgets. My wife is a financial advisor. May 9th seems to me to be a dubious date. Just what? Plug in a number, and that's what you got with it. After the election, make the decision.
Well, and the election doesn't happen without the action, and I don't think I can give you a satisfactory answer. If there's a date that would meet your needs, we would consider it, but I don't even know that we can satisfy you based on what you're telling me. And I apologize. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the election happens after the fact. And that's the way the process works.
So will we know on May 9th?
I think you will, yes.
So if the current group is tossed out, reversion?
No, sir. The other thing I'll tell you too is, and we haven't mentioned this point, but there is the perspective of the town citizens as well. In North Hills, Town and Country, parts of Boone Drive, Stratford Drive, you can't access your properties without utilizing our roads, which are currently maintained by town taxpayers. I mean, it's a fact that physically, these neighborhoods were developed off of what was then the city's infrastructure. That's all well and good. Candidly, I don't really know why that happened. Ordinarily, if you're running services somewhere, you take it in while that's happening,
Right.
so people don't have any unmet expectations. But that happened in the 60s and 70s of Town and Country, and it happened in the 80s and 90s with North Hills, and I don't know why. So, again, I'm just being candid. That's the side of the coin that was discussed 10 years ago. Also, unfortunately, it is impacting you folks, and I am terribly sorry about that.
Mighty fuzzy. There's no fuzz in the law. It is or it isn't.
And this is all being done by a legally defined process, sir. The part of the issue is I realize a lot of you did not know this was happening. I can't address that. I don't know why you didn't know, but we did nothing to hide it. We did nothing to hide it. We adopted a comprehensive plan 6 years ago that lays it out. It's out there. We talked about it last August. The other thing I'll tell you is, aside from May 9th and April 11th, Town Council meets the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. We very rarely have attendance. Please attend. Please pay attention. Yes, sir.
Got a question and a comment. Question, if you're in town currently, do you have right to sewer? Do you have right to be hooked up to sewer if you're currently in town?
The short answer is no. That is administered by the Bedford Regional Water Authority, and what they will tell you is they'll get it to you if you'll pay for it. That's the honest answer.
Why would someone right beside the hospital not have sewage?
I don't know. I mean, that's an excellent, that goes back to what I was talking about when these neighborhoods are developed. I have no idea.
And comment, follow up on what Sheriff Miller had to say, considering our situation with higher interest rates, higher prices and things, the state of every economy being much higher right now, that hopefully it won't stay there. Is there any such thing as putting a delay on this at that town council meeting, and just putting a stay to it? Creating a delay, waiting for better economic times, if it's still on the books to happen at a later time?
Probably. There probably is. I'll look into that and I'll verify that, but that's a good question. Now, again, I'm going to share some information with you that's not going to be popular. When reversion happened, there was talk about taking these areas in immediately then, and the town had the right to do that. I know the city fathers at the time put it off then for 10 years with the idea that you folks who were impacted would be able to make other plans. Obviously, that didn't work out very well. So.
Timing is not always there.
Yeah, this timing is terrible. There's no two ways about that. But the economy the way it is, this is not a great time to be talking about this.
Who do I have to see but you to talk about a few of the different things on the farm that's going to affect me?
No, you can absolutely talk to any of you can.
No, I mean, I need to get straightened out on some of this stuff or I'll go to jail. Well, I bought the place so I had a place to hunt when I got old.
Yeah,
Well, I got old. And now I don't have a place to hunt, apparently, unless I go out there with a stick.
that's a discussion we need to have.
Yes,
You're in my backyard.
I got 100 acres.
I ain't got nothing. You're perfectly fine.
Again, come talk, Jim, come to anybody else, and come talk to me, and actually Chief Lewis, I'll bring it. If our ordinances are creating a problem, we need to fix that aside from this whole discussion. And I'll make you do that. Yes, sir.
Jim, getting all these services now, for the city, the taxes are going up.
absolutely revisit that.
And it's not just deer, it's,
I know.
it's quail, it's, you know.
And it's nuisances like groundhogs and things like that. I understand.
Yeah, I have groundhog time, my God, no, I don't get them.
I may or may not deal with groundhogs on my property within town, but I'm not in the grove. And
Yeah, I'm not giving them now, we all get it.
any other, yeah, Mike?
Well, so let's say four of the council members vote on May the 9th, this doesn't happen.
Yes.
What is the negative impact to the town, as I've heard, other than they won't receive $450,000?
My bosses may not like this answer. As the, we'll continue to provide services within the 8.7 square miles. Like it's,
So what services have you, what things have you lacked, seeing that the bank account has almost doubled since the reversion? What has lacked in the budget that's not been able to be put in there that needs the $450,000?
again, it's really dollar for dollar. There's some capital things, which again goes back to infrastructure like sidewalks. So if we're going to charge you $400,000, $500,000 collectively, we're going to give that back to you in sidewalks or something. We do need you to tell us what that is. But, and frankly, if we're not going to provide it, at some point we're going to stop taking it.
Will we be able to, I would like to just two of them, will we be able to still have a road maintenance fund when we come into the city, because we're not going to do our road?
Now, you're talking about you all, I'm not familiar, when you say a road maintenance fund, is that something you have
Road
probably?
in each year, and then if these, the potholes fixed.
And you take care of that on your own? Oh, yeah, we won't impact that at all. The only thing I tell you is if, and I think I already know the answer, but I'll throw it out there. If you ever wanted your road to be brought up to VDOT standards or public standards, we would do that and take over maintenance, but I don't think you're interested in that. Anything else? I know I'm not making you folks happy tonight, I apologize for that, but. Yes, sir.
I know how to reframe the seal now.
Here, just blow it all crap, nothing we can do. Vote for food.
Any other questions or comments? Now, having said all this, there's another meeting on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I'll be presenting this same presentation that I did tonight. Feel free to come back Saturday and join us. If there's something you meant to say tonight that you think about afterwards, you can come Saturday. Come on April 11th to the public hearing for certain. Come to the council meetings in general anyway. They're open. We, as a staff person who's responsible for providing services, we really need your input and your opinions.
What time is that meeting on the 11th?
7 o'clock p.m. The second and fourth Tuesdays of every month at 7 o'clock. Yeah, it's like.
And they are streamed, so you can go do it.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
From your home, you can tune in and watch what's going on.
Truly, and I'll just end my comments and say, the thing that troubles me the most is that so many of you did not know this. And I recognize that's true, but that's really cool. Yes, sir.
Sign up to speak at the town council meeting.
At any regular meeting, there's a sign-up sheet anytime. April 11th, just show up. I think that's important. You won't have to sign up to speak on April 11th. Just
Is there a time limit or?
Mayor sitting right next to it. We typically say there's like a 3-minute time limit, but for something this important, I don't see that as being a hard and fast rule.
Just one last question.
I'm sorry, Jim, but gentleman had a question back.
Yeah, I'm more confused now than I was before.
Oh, man, well, I'm really sorry about that.
So, let me just understand this. We, as residents, don't want this to happen, right? I think we've established that. We don't feel that the services you outlined amount to $400,000. I certainly don't. It's goes on if it doesn't happen. So, why can't we make this thing not happen? I mean, it's no big deal to the town, it doesn't matter. I mean, you said that you go through the town to get to our property. Well, people out on 221 go through the city to get to 460, so that argument doesn't flow.
Well, I disagree, sir. I mean, we're providing you the access to your home. That's kind of like providing a driveway.
It's like providing the access to those people to 460.
You know, you raised the point, and
But anyway.
the honest answer is, the other thing that I've told you about, where we do provide services to you, if this area is not taken in, the town taxpayers will not fund those services. So we probably won't respond to calls in the county anymore, and that will impact fire and police, because those are funded by town taxes. And also there is the matter of, providing your access. The town may see the need to recover some costs based on that impact.
So we see the sheriff working out on a regular basis. Typically when they're called, except for one incident recently, there's usually a sheriff out there.
Yeah.
You're saying though that if there's an emergency to the city, then we can do it.
What I'm saying is, what I'm hearing is you don't want our services. They go with the annexation. So if you do not want to receive the services, you won't receive them. That's what I'm telling you. Those are funded by town taxes.
Reciprocal relationship.
There is currently, and that is, let me explain.
So if we get enough votes, we get every resident to say we're not going to do this, we get our own attorney and fight it, and then we win, and there's an emergency and somebody's going to die, we're not going to send it out.
In case somebody dies, I don't want to say that, but what I'm telling you is, again, it's based on what you're telling us. You don't want to come in and you don't want our services. The services we provide are funded by.
You're talking about police services?
Yes.
What else?
Fire services.
But does the county pay into the Bedford Fire Department too?
The county buys apparatus. They don't fund personnel.
Okay, so, but they help fund the Bedford Fire Department.
For apparatus, yes. Yes. And again,
So then if there's a fire in the city, you can't use the truck.
and look,
Don't start that.
I really don't. That's,
So I guess.
if somebody's got an emergency, we need to respond, but understand, and we get those questions now from town residents. Again, we appreciate your point of view. We hear from people within town that we're subsidizing your access, we're responding to calls outside of town limits with personnel that are funded by town taxes. I'm not saying that's right, I'm just letting you know that. 60% of our fire calls are outside town limits.
I mean, for police.
I don't know, please, I'd say it's rare. I mean, and I don't want that to happen. And as far as in an emergency situation, because we value humanity, we need to respond to those calls. Just understand that the funding for that is coming from the town. And it's possible that we would probably withdraw from some of the services.
What's good purpose?
I hope not.
I mean, we like our trash pickup, $25 a month. You know, it's a nice little independent business. They pretty much pick up anything we want to do.
You do pay.
Our crime rate down there is extraordinarily low at North Hills and along that corridor. And it's like anybody else out in the county. It's just that we're being held hostage now because we have to use your road on our property.
That's a trash deal.
Yes.
You know, I was telling him about putting it in his front yard. He said that ain't gonna happen. I asked my dad, they say you're supposed to respect your dad, so I got to do this. Well, if I take your trash to the landfill, but you can't dump it in the dumpster somewhere, or you'd be fined for it, right?
You can't dump trash in the recycling bins.
That's what I'm talking about. The one with the regular residential, like one on Boyle Road, that's where I usually go to all.
That's a county facility, sure.
So that we can still dump our trash?
Oh, yeah.
That ain't what's on the sign.
I ain't what's on the sign or what's there.
That's a $50 fine.
They gonna be checking your driver's
That's a county service we don't administer.
They will be checking your driver's license and registration to see if the trash has come from a town or if it's come from the county. That's what the sign says.
Oh, now you're talking at our transfer station here.
Yeah, there's Courthouse Road. Right there, where the, old landfill is.
Now, that's a county facility. And all town residents are county residents, so I'm not sure why there'd be a distinction.
But can we use it? Then we go to the town dump after?
Sure.
Where's the town dump?
Orange Street. We have a transfer station.
On Orange Street? If
Yeah.
I take it out of the county, like I get, we do a spring cleaning.
Any other questions about, because this, we need to make sure we're getting the info out here. So,
I take my trash over to county dump, they charge you by the tonnage,
yes.
by the poundage. If you got more than a spring cleaner, they charge you by the pound.
I'll be happy to talk to you more personally about this, or I just want to make sure we, because I see,
Yeah.
again, we got to respect everybody else's time. Any other questions, comments?
And I just think, yes, sir.
Yes.
I just think, in short, version of a comment is that, this group assembled here this evening don't want a more than 60% increase in real estate tax on services that they've already done.
I understand.
And it doesn't seem like that there's going to be an option for us as taxpayers to say we can opt in or opt out. So we can only hope and pray that on the November 9th meeting, that they would decide not to adopt the ordinance.
I'd say that's pretty accurate. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
The current town residents pay county taxes and.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Again, I'll stay here as long as you need me to, but I will certainly respect your time.
So you're basically just looking for population growth, because it sounds to me like the money's a wash. We're gonna take in $500,000 and provide $500,000 of services. So what is the advantage?
Honestly, there's not, we're not really looking for an advantage at your expense. That's just kind of one of the things is,
But you're taking away some freedom.
well, and I've made a note that we want to make sure we don't do that. Frankly, regardless of what else happens, I'm going to follow up on the hunting issue because I want to make sure we're not hanging ourselves anyway. So thank you for bringing it up.
I think we don't even get any benefit.
That's certainly, you know, your point of view, and I respect that.
So I need to tell these hospitals that's sending me these bills that they want to take my house, but they can't afford it because they can't pay off taxes.
So, Mike, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did, but I just hope that town council and everyone is going to look at the food banks. Because that is the largest, as we go out in our county, and we watch, and if you watch the church right across from CBS this morning, they are now wrapped around the church, is what they are. It's the largest increase that they have told us, that people are asking for donations for food. For food. But yet, we want the tax increase to be 60% on us. When you've got more people using the food banks in this community than it's ever happened. I just, honestly, I just don't understand. I cannot wrap my head around why the economy is struggling so bad in Bedford. We'll say Bedford, let's narrow it down to Bedford. And yet, we're pushing forward for a 60% tax increase. And you can back that up with everyone here. We've gone to our food banks. We've helped deliver food when COVID was here to our community. We have people that we've even adopted as a sheriff's office to give them extra food when they need it. You know, the things I was forgetting was eggs have gone up 55%, pet food's gone up 15%. It just, honestly, I just can't. Mr. Warren, you did a great job up here tonight, and I appreciate that. I truly do more than you'll ever know. But I can't wrap my head around why we're continuing this. When even on Channel 13 last night, it said, we're in this for 12 to 18 more months is what they're predicting.
Yeah, the recession's coming, there's no question.
Yeah, so why don't we, as the gentleman said, why don't we push this off? You know, and let's get the economy back straight, let's get it all, and then if rubber hits the road, it hits the road.
And we'll follow up on that, that was a good point. Again, thank you folks very much again, and I know I understand, we hear what you're saying, council hears what you're saying. You've given us some good things to work on at a staff level that we're going to regardless, so I do appreciate that. Come see me anytime. My door's always open. I'll give you honest answers, even if you don't like it. That'll work. Thank you folks very much. I do appreciate it.